At the very beginning, you heard the former president talk about a stolen election.
Donald Trump has been a thief his whole life. He stole from casinos in Atlantic City, from builders, bankers, and black tenants in Brooklyn, and more recently, from these morons.
So today, we're going to do what the Bible says. We're going to bring the will of God, and we're going to pray for the president, for President Trump to be the next president.
Americans need a Bible in their home, and I have many. It's my favorite book.
So what's stopping him from stealing an election? Well, hopefully you and I, because these people sure won't.
Stop the steal! Stop the steal! Stop the steal!
But thanks to a $787 settlement, we have an unlikely new ally in the fight against Trump's election lies.
And while he may feel a certain way, the facts remain Joe Biden was declared the winner with 51% of the vote.
Hot damn, Harris Faulkner hitting him with the, while he might feel a certain way, certainly got me feeling a certain type of way. And I'll be damned if y'all don't get in on this too. So let's unravel what the hell Trump said at his speech, Fox being forced to shamefully cover their own asses, and then wrap up with the incredibly good news about how Trump's election reversal dreams are about as dead as the majority of his brain cells.
It's going very well. There are some bad spots in Pennsylvania where some serious things have been caught or in the process of being caught, but
Clearly, Trump didn't take his horse anti-parasitic this morning, because he sounded a bit raspy starting off his speech at Mar-A-Lago today by bringing up, quote, bad spots in Pennsylvania where some serious things have been caught. Unclear exactly what he means by that, and given that he was over an hour late to start, I'm kind of disappointed he couldn't come up with something better like, the dog ate my ballots.
they're eating the dogs.
But what the senile sack of Big Macs was likely referring to was an election office in Pennsylvania looking into an overabundance of voter registration forms and requests for mail-in ballots right after receiving thousands of voter registration forms that were flagged for potential fraud. The York County Elections Office in Pennsylvania received a large delivery containing thousands of election-related materials from a third-party organization, likely a political canvassing organization that has yet to be identified. With York County President Commissioner Julie Wheeler telling Fox on Monday, it's not unusual to get large stacks of voter registrations or large stacks of requests for mail-in ballots, it's just this was an overabundance of registrations from one particular organization. And election workers are currently investigating it, with Lancaster County District Attorney Heather Adams, who is an elected Republican, saying at a news conference Friday that about 60% of the applications that have been investigated so far have been identified as fraudulent, though she did not disclose the total number of applications that have been investigated fully. But she did say it is believed that the fraudulent registrations are connected to a, quote, large-scale canvassing operation dating back to June. Adding, it appears to be an organized effort at this point, noting that the investigation is ongoing, and saying we'll be looking into it, who exactly participated in it and how far up it goes. So yes, that is clearly concerning, and there have been other incidents of ballot boxes being set on fire in states like Washington and Oregon, but the key takeaways here are that the applications to register, not ballots, were caught, and despite Trump's attempt at sparking fear by spewing headlines with no context, voting in the US still remains very safe, and audits will catch fake ballots when an election is tight. A takeaway that unfortunately rings like a dog whistle at too high a pitch for MAGA morons to hear or understand.
Barack Obama had a big part of 9/11.
Which part?
Not being around, always on vacation, never in the office.
Why do you think Barack Obama wasn't in the Oval Office on 9/11?
That I don't know. Would like to get to the bottom of that.
But now that we've cleared the air for everyone watching who wasn't incessantly dropped on their head as a baby, let's get back to the man who was incessantly dropped on his head as a baby.
And if you remember, Joe Biden appointed her as the border czar.
We're going to dip out of Donald Trump's remarks there. He is making a number of false claims, so we want to interrupt what he is saying for a few moments and go straight to Daniel Dale, our fact checker. Daniel, I mean, one of the things that Trump did just at the start of all of this, falsely claiming that the 2020 election was stolen from him, we have debunked that so many times. That is just an outright lie.
Yeah, not even halfway through this incoherent ramble from the stable genius, CNN bailed on him to fact-check all the nonsense he was spewing, which really is just a daily occurrence at this point, and makes me wonder, at what point does putting this guy in front of a camera and a microphone just become elder abuse? Because we let this walking justification for mental asylums rant and ramble in an attempt to run the country instead of putting him down with some prune juice like we should, which unsurprisingly leads to moments like this.
So you heard there, this is Mar-A-Lago, the home of the former president, Donald Trump, and you heard there that he was going to give a statement, have a few guests. That's exactly what he did. He was very honed in on important issues.
Harris, what the Faulkner are you talking about? The only things Trump was honed in on in that speech were hate and another man's wife.
Remember when I met with Obama, his wife was very nasty to me the other day. Oh, that was not nice. She was very nasty. She said nasty things.
And I'll play the incredible takedown he's referring to from Michelle Obama in a minute. But right after Harris Faulkner praised him for his powerful and honed-in speech, she was forced to make this humiliating correction.
At the very beginning, you heard the former president talk about a stolen election. And while he may feel a certain way, the facts remain Joe Biden was declared the winner with 51% of the vote. States certified those results of the 2020 election, and Congress accepted those results. Now, the nation is moving toward November 5th, with tens of millions of people already voting, setting voting records, early voting records, in places like battleground Georgia. And he spoke for nearly an hour about, again, the issues, compelling with video, with guests, about the border, the economy, and so much more. Welcome to Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner.
Yeah, kind of hard to take you serious, Harris, when you start your sycophantic praise of a lunatic criminal by fact-checking the election lie he's still using from 4 years ago. But even harder when you're doing all that to the tune of the fucking YMCA. Is Fox News even real, or are we just living in Rupert Murdoch's fever dream? This buffoon lies for 4 years straight about how the election was stolen from him with bullshit evidence, and the only reason these asshats don't go along with it anymore is because they got buried under a $787 million lawsuit with Dominion Voting that finally shut them up. But here's the good news, folks. This New York Times op-ed reports that the legal arguments Donald Trump used to try to reverse the election outcome in 2020 have been decisively rejected, and the legal loopholes he tried to open have been closed. And while we should expect MAGA lawyers to bombard courts and state legislators with frivolous arguments to try to reverse the outcome if Trump loses, and we shouldn't be shocked or surprised if MAGA ultimately resorts to violence like it did on January 6th, most Americans don't realize how well our election system has been fortified against Trump's legal schemes. He cannot run the same playbook he ran in 2020. This article does a great job of breaking that down, and I'll link to it below, but since we've already seen that movie far too many times, let's skip ahead to why it's less feasible today. Firstly, and perhaps most importantly, he can no longer leverage right-wing media to spread his conspiracy crap anymore. Fox was reined in by Dominion. Rudy Giuliani is going to have to clean himself off the streets of New York after losing his apartment and practically everything he owns in a defamation suit about his election lies. And other right-wing news organizations, including Salem Media Group, Newsmax, and One American News Network, have made apologies, issued retractions, and entered into settlements in response to their own defamatory statements in 2020. They all played themselves, and Trump lost his biggest mouthpiece. But even if we presume that Trump, if he loses this time, can once again persuade tens of millions of Americans that the election was stolen, his legal options have now narrowed considerably. When Trump's team tried to appeal to the Supreme Court that the Constitution empowered state legislators to act as independent, virtually omnipotent election regulators, in essence saying they and they alone could decide how states selected presidential electors, the Supreme Court shot that argument down and held that federal elections were still subject to state judicial review and state constitutional law. But that's not all. Congress also reformed the Electoral Count Act, raising the threshold for asserting objections to election certification, as well as narrowing the grounds for raising objections and specifying that the vice president's role in the process is purely ceremonial, meaning they have no discretion to block the count. So luckily, no vice president will be dangling from a noose in front of the Capitol. But that does not mean that there will be no political violence. In fact, this legal reform might make political violence more likely because Trump's team knows that it is now virtually impossible to reverse an election outcome through the courts or Congress. So while Trump gets his diaper in a bunch because Michelle Obama says nasty things about him like this,
that we are indifferent to his erratic behavior, his obvious mental decline, his history as a convicted felon, a known slumlord, a predator found liable for sexual abuse, all of this, while we pick apart Kamala's answers from interviews that he doesn't even have the courage to do, y'all.
We need to remember and remain vigilant about the fact that he has spent the last 4 years riling up Republicans into a ravenous rage and then promising to pardon them for any violence they commit in his name. And as the op-ed starkly puts it, the judiciary has slammed the door shut on Trump's most dangerous legal argument, Congress has slammed the door shut on abusing the certification process to relitigate the presidential election, but nothing and no one can foreclose the possibility of political violence. If Trump loses again, chaos is his last and most dangerous card to play. So you know what to do, folks. Vote early, vote blue, and vote down the ballot. Let me know all your thoughts in those comments down below. Thank you for watching the video. If you made it this far, consider dropping a like, subscribing to the Really American channel. It really helps us out. For Really American, I'm Kenny Hesse, and I'll see you all in the next one.